The Grand Council chamber hummed with anticipation as representatives from over 200 stellar civilizations gathered. Massive holographic displays illuminated the cavernous space, projecting diplomatic records spanning millennia. At the center sat the Seven Elders, ancient beings who had guided interstellar politics since before many species had discovered fire. Ambassador Thomas Reed stood alone at the speaking platform, his weathered face betraying no emotion despite the hostile murmurs rippling through the assembly. Humanity's trial had reached its conclusion. "The Council has deliberated," announced Elder Vox, his crystalline form shimmering with internal light. "Your species has been found wanting. In your brief century of interstellar presence, you have disrupted trade agreements, questioned traditions, and introduced dangerous innovations without proper consideration of consequences." Elder Maris, her serpentine body coiled around her ceremonial staff, spoke next. "You refuse to accept your proper place in the galactic hierarchy. You push boundaries established for the safety of all. You ask questions deemed closed millennia ago." Reed's jaw tightened, but he remained silent. The charges were technically true. Humanity had refused to follow protocols established by species thousands of years their senior. They had questioned inefficiencies, challenged dogmas, and consistently sought better ways forward. "The Grand Council hereby decrees," Elder Vox continued, "that humanity shall be exiled from protected space. Your colonies will receive no aid, no trade, no diplomatic recognition. You are cast beyond the barrier nebula, to the uncharted sectors where ancient dangers lurk." Gasps echoed through the chamber. Exile beyond the barrier was unprecedented, a death sentence for a young spacefaring civilization. "You doom us for the crime of thinking differently." Reed finally spoke, his voice steady. "We protect the harmonious order developed over 50,000 years," Elder Maris replied. "Your species is dangerously unpredictable." Reed straightened his shoulders. "Then we accept your judgment and will forge our own path." The human delegation departed without further protest, leaving a troubled silence in their wake. Some council representatives exchanged uneasy glances. Others nodded in satisfaction. None truly understood what they had set in motion. 3 standard months later, the last human settlement within council space was evacuated. Massive colony ships, hastily retrofitted to carry millions, departed toward the dark expanses beyond the barrier nebula. The ancient defense platforms that had kept that region isolated for millennia were briefly deactivated to allow humanity's passage, then re-engaged, sealing them from the civilized galaxy. In the central archives, Archivist Kell updated the historical records. Humanity, uplifted species number 4721, failed integration. Exiled 23rd day, 9th cycle, Grand Era 503. Projected survival timeframe beyond barrier, less than 1 century. Little did the archivist know that 1 century would prove woefully inadequate to measure humanity's timeline. On the bridge of the colony ship Defiance, Admiral Elena Winters watched the barrier nebula grow larger in the view screen. Behind her, representatives from Earth and its former colonies conferred in hushed tones. "We've updated the emergency broadcast to all scattered vessels," reported Communications Director Pottle. 93% of our ships have confirmed receiving the coordinates for the rendezvous point." Winters nodded. "And Project Phoenix? The research teams are ready. If there's technology out there that the Council fears, we'll find it." Winters turned back to the view screen, her expression resolute. "The Council believes they're punishing us, Director. I think they've just given us the greatest opportunity in human history." The Defiance crossed the threshold of the barrier, leading humanity into exile, and toward a destiny greater than anything the Council could have imagined. 100 days into exile, humanity discovered why the Council feared the regions beyond the barrier nebula. The scout ship Pathfinder transmitted a single garbled message before going silent. Massive structures, ancient, still active, not built by organics. The transmission ended with screams. Admiral Winters convened an emergency council aboard the fleet flagship, "We've lost 3 scout ships in the same sector," she reported grimly. "Whatever destroyed them is unlike anything in Council records." Dr. Marcus Webb, head of Xenorchaeology, displayed holographic reconstructions based on the fragmentary data. These appear to be automated defense systems left by a civilization that predates even the Council. "The technology is extraordinary. Can we avoid this sector entirely?" asked Governor Rhodes. Webb shook his head. "The defenses span at least 40 light-years. And there's something else." He enhanced one section of the hologram. "These systems aren't just weapons. They're protecting something." "You want to investigate rather than retreat," Winters stated flatly. "The Council feared what lies beyond the barrier," Webb replied. "Maybe this is why." The decision was made. Rather than seeking safe haven, humanity would confront the ancient mystery directly. The risks were immense, but civilization-defining discoveries often required entering uncharted territories. 3 months later, the research vessel Curiosity successfully penetrated the defensive perimeter. Lieutenant James Foster, piloting a specially shielded shuttle, navigated through fields of automated sentinels to reach the central structure, a massive station the size of Earth's moon. "The systems are recognizing our approach but not firing," Foster reported. "It's almost as if it's scanning us." Inside the facility, Foster's team discovered control interfaces unlike any technology they had encountered. Data repositories containing information so dense that their storage media alone confounded human science. Dr. Emily Carter, the team's linguistics specialist, worked tirelessly to establish basic communication with the facility's systems. On the 27th day, a breakthrough came. "It's responding to our inputs," she reported excitedly. "And I've managed rudimentary translation of some data clusters." This facility, it belonged to a species the translation renders as the Architects. They were apparently at war with something called the Void. Within weeks, humanity had established a permanent research base inside the ancient facility. Each discovery led to more questions, but one fact became increasingly clear. The Council wasn't just aware of the Architects' legacy, they had actively suppressed all knowledge of it. Back at the fleet's main settlement, now named Haven, Admiral Winters received Webb's preliminary report. "The Architects' technology operates on principles we've barely begun to comprehend," Webb explained. "But what we've already adapted has allowed us to enhance our propulsion systems by 300% and our energy production by 500%. Why would the Council fear this knowledge?" Winters wondered. Webb's expression grew troubled. "Because it suggests the Council's technological stagnation is deliberate, not inevitable. And there's something else." He paused. "The Architects left warnings about the Void, some kind of existential threat that might still exist. We believe the Council knows about this threat, but has chosen containment rather than confrontation." Winters gazed at the stars visible through Haven's observatory dome. "Then we have 2 tasks before us. Master this forgotten knowledge, and prepare for a danger the galaxy's oldest civilizations chose to hide from rather than face." In that moment, humanity's exile transformed from punishment to purpose. Beyond the Council's controlled boundaries, they had found not just refuge, but responsibility. 20 years passed in the shadow of exile. Where the Council had predicted humanity's swift demise, they instead witnessed an unprecedented flourishing. The settlement of Haven grew into New Terra, a thriving metropolis built within and around a cluster of architect facilities. Humanity had not merely survived beyond the barrier. They had claimed their place among the stars in ways that defied conventional wisdom. Director Elijah Morrison, once a junior engineer aboard the Defiance, now headed the Adaptive Technologies Division. His team specialized in integrating architect principles with human ingenuity. The architects were brilliant, Morrison explained to a group of officials, but their thought patterns were fundamentally different from ours. They created technologies capable of restructuring matter at quantum levels, yet never considered applications that seem obvious to us. This synergy of ancient knowledge and human creativity yielded astonishing results. ships that could fold space-time in ways the Council deemed impossible, medical technologies that extended human lifespans threefold, production systems that rendered scarcity a distant memory. Yet humanity's most significant adaptation wasn't technological but social. Free from the Council's rigid hierarchies and traditions, human settlements evolved diverse governance models. Some embraced direct democracy enhanced by neural networks. Others developed consensual meritocracies, where leadership shifted based on relevant expertise. All shared information freely, transcending the nationalistic barriers that had once divided Earth. Commander Maya Rivera, who had been just a child during the exile, now led the Sentinel Fleet, ships patrolling the borders of human space. Her flagship Vigilance encountered a damaged vessel drifting near the barrier. Council markings, her first officer reported, appears to be a research ship. Life support failing. Rivera hesitated only briefly. Bring them aboard. Full quarantine protocols. The rescue yielded unexpected dividends. Among the Council scientists was Dr. Lauren Tall, a Centauri xenobiologist who had secretly opposed humanity's exile. The Council has changed since your departure, Tal revealed during debriefing. Your exile was meant to remove a perceived threat, but your absence has revealed flaws in the system. Some younger species are asking questions the elders can't answer. More significant were the reasons for Tal's expedition. Anomalies have appeared throughout Council space, energy signatures that match nothing in our records. The elders insist there's no cause for concern, but many of us believe otherwise. Rivera immediately recognized the description. The void, she whispered. Tal's eyes widened. You know of it. This exchange marked a turning point. While officially maintaining humanity's exile, unofficial contact with progressive elements within Council space became regular. Information flowed both ways, though the technological gap had reversed dramatically. Meanwhile, deep space observatories detected disturbing patterns in distant galaxies, entire star systems going dark in coordinated patterns. The void was no longer theoretical. In New Terra's Grand Assembly, Admiral Winters, now in her 70s, but mentally sharp thanks to life extension treatments, addressed the gathered representatives. For 20 years, we've built, learned, and grown stronger, she declared. We've created technologies the Council never imagined and forged societies free from their limitations. Now we face a choice: remain in our exile, safe but separate, or return to confront both the Council and the threat they've ignored. The debate lasted weeks, but the conclusion was inevitable. Humanity had not merely survived exile. They had transcended it. Now, transformed by their journey, they would return to challenge the very foundations of galactic civilization. As the Assembly reached its decision, research teams made a final critical breakthrough in understanding the architect's most complex technology: the ability to restructure reality itself. 50 years after exile, humanity returned to Council space, not as supplicants seeking forgiveness, but as harbingers of change. The human fleet materialized simultaneously at 12 strategic locations throughout Council territory, bypassing the ancient defense platforms of the Barrier Nebula as easily as stepping through an open door. Their ships bore little resemblance to the crude vessels of their departure. These craft shimmered with energy fields that bent light around their hulls, powered by cores that drew energy directly from subspace. On the flagship Prometheus, Fleet Admiral Jackson surveyed the tactical display. A Council defense fleet approached their position near the Centauri homeworld, weapons charged. "They're hailing us," reported Communications Officer Lin. Jackson nodded. On screen, the face that appeared belonged to High Commander Trell of the Council Security Force. "Human vessels, you are in violation of exile terms. Power down and prepare to be boarded or face immediate destruction." Jackson's response was measured. "We come with critical information and technology the Council needs. The threat known as the Void has awakened. We request an emergency session with the 7 elders. Your claims will be evaluated after your surrender," Trell insisted. Jackson smiled thinly. "That's not how this conversation works anymore." She nodded to her tactical officer. Throughout Council space, human vessels deployed a network of devices that interface directly with the Council's communications grid. Every connected system, from personal terminals to governmental networks, received the same message: comprehensive data on the Void threat, evidence of its recent activities, and humanity's proposed countermeasures. The Council's carefully controlled information monopoly shattered in moments. "What have you done?" Trell demanded, face pale. "Shared the truth," Jackson replied simply. "Now about that meeting." 24 hours later, Ambassador Michael Chen stood before the Grand Council, the first human to do so in half a century. The chamber was chaotic, with representatives from dozens of species demanding explanations from the clearly rattled elders. 50 years ago, you cast us out," Chen began, his voice carrying easily over the din. "You expected us to perish. Instead, we thrived. We discovered what you had hidden for millennia: the legacy of the architects and the threat of the void." Elder Vox rose from his seat. "You have violated every protocol." "Your protocols," Chen interrupted, "were designed to maintain a stagnant status quo while a genuine existential threat gathered strength. The void has already consumed 3 galaxies in neighboring clusters. Its advanced scouts have infiltrated this galaxy. You knew this, yet chose to hide rather than prepare. The evidence humanity had broadcast was incontrovertible. Recordings from observatories beyond Council space showed entire solar systems being systematically dismantled, their energy and matter harvested by entities that seemed to exist partly outside normal spacetime. "We return not for revenge," Chen continued, "but because the void cannot be defeated by humanity alone. It will require the combined knowledge and resources of all spacefaring civilizations." A junior council member from the Proxima system stood. "What exactly are you proposing, Ambassador?" "A complete restructuring of the Council, an end to technological suppression, open sharing of all knowledge regarding the architects and the void, and immediate implementation of defensive measures around key systems." The chamber erupted again, but there was a difference in the tenor of the chaos. Fear mingled with hope, resistance with curiosity. Outside the council chamber, across thousands of worlds, citizens absorbed the information humanity had shared. For younger species, it confirmed suspicions about the council's restrictive policies. For older ones, it resurrected buried histories. The council recess lasted 3 days. When proceedings resumed, Elder Maris made an unprecedented announcement. The 7 elders will step down. A transitional authority will be established, with representation based on contribution rather than longevity. Humanity's return had not conquered the council, it had transformed it. And as discussions of reorganization proceeded, human ships quietly deployed defensive arrays throughout council space, preparing for the greater battle to come. 100 days after humanity's return, the Galactic Cooperative emerged from the ashes of the Grand Council. The transition was not without conflict. Several elder species attempted military action to restore the old order. Others withdrew to their core systems, refusing to participate in what they viewed as a dangerous restructuring of cosmic hierarchy. But the majority recognized the truth in humanity's warnings and embraced the opportunity for change. Species that had been relegated to minor roles for millennia now contributed innovations long suppressed by council doctrine. Civilizations previously pitted against each other as buffer states between elder powers found common ground in collaborative defense projects. Admiral Winters, now 123 years old but still vital thanks to architect-derived medical technology, served as humanity's representative on the Cooperative's Defense Council. In a massive holographic chamber on the neutral world of Nexus, she addressed representatives from 87 species. "The first wave of void entities will reach our galaxy within 5 years," she explained, manipulating a 3-dimensional stellar map. "Their advanced scouts are already here, gathering information. We've identified 3 distinct types of void constructs, each with specific functions." The gathered delegates watched grimly as simulation data showed the systematic dismantling of star systems, stars themselves harvested for energy, planets broken down to their constituent elements. The architects fought the void to a stalemate 50,000 years ago. Winters continued, but at tremendous cost. Their civilization never recovered. The early council discovered their abandoned technology, but feared it would disrupt their control. They buried the knowledge and established the barrier to quarantine what they couldn't understand. Commander Drake of the Proxima Defense Force rose to speak. Our analysts have been studying the architect databases you shared. The void doesn't appear to be a traditional species. It's more like a self-propagating algorithm that converts matter to extend itself. It doesn't negotiate or communicate. Precisely, Winters agreed. This isn't a war for territory or resources. It's an existential struggle against extinction. Over the following months, the cooperative established a multi-layered defense strategy. Outer detection networks extended far into intergalactic space. Research teams reverse-engineered architect weapon systems and improved upon them with diverse perspectives from dozens of species. Most importantly, humanity shared the reality restructuring technology they had discovered, the ability to partially phase matter out of normal spacetime, creating zones where the void's influence could be countered. Dr. Renata Okafor, head of the Phasing Technology Division, worked with scientists from 17 species to refine the process. The architects created this technology as a last resort. She explained during one briefing. It allows us to create null spaces where the void's physical laws don't apply. But maintaining these spaces requires enormous energy and precise calibration. Integration of the various species technologies proved challenging. Human systems, based on architect principles but developed in isolation, often conflicted with council-derived tech. Cultural differences created communication barriers between scientific teams. Yet these differences ultimately became strengths. Where the council had enforced homogeneity, the cooperative embraced diversity of thought. Multiple approaches to the same problems yielded redundant systems that were far more resilient than any single solution. On the frontier world of Nova, a joint military exercise demonstrated this new paradigm. Ships from 20 different species, once forbidden from sharing military technology, now trained together using integrated command systems. Fleet Commander Jason Torres watched from the bridge of the human dreadnought Defiance II as the Allied vessels executed a perfect defensive formation. 5 years ago, these species barely acknowledged each other's existence, remarked his Proximan second officer. Now they fight as one. Torres nodded. Unity forged by necessity. As the exercise concluded, emergency signals blared across the command net. At the edge of charted space, a deep space monitoring station had gone silent. Then another, and another. The first engagement with Void Scouts was about to begin, years ahead of predictions. Torres opened a channel to all ships. This is no longer an exercise. Battle stations. The cooperative's baptism by fire had arrived sooner than anyone expected. Humanity's return had catalyzed unprecedented unity, but would it be enough against an enemy that consumed entire galaxies? The battle at Outpost Sigmum marked humanity's first direct confrontation with the Void. It would not be the last. The Void construct that materialized near the outpost defied conventional description. A shifting mass of crystalline structures and dark energy fields that seemed to bend reality around it. Standard sensors failed to track it properly, as though it existed partially in another dimension. Commander Diana Reed of the Rapid Response Vessel Swift Justice arrived just as the outpost's automated defenses failed. All ships, form barrier pattern, she ordered. Deploy phase anchors on my mark. The mixed fleet of human and allied vessels moved with practiced precision. Phase anchors, devices derived from architect technology, created a localized field where normal spacetime rules could be enforced, preventing the Void entity from shifting between dimensions. Entity contained, reported Reed's tactical officer, but the anchors are draining power faster than anticipated. Reed made a split-second decision. All ships concentrated fire on the central node. The combined firepower of 30 vessels converged on the trapped void construct. For several seconds, it seemed to absorb the energy without effect. Then, with a reality-bending implosion, it collapsed into a singularity that quickly evaporated. The victory came at a cost. 3 ships destroyed, 7 more damaged, and the outpost itself reduced to scattered debris. More concerning was the analysis that followed. Dr. William Reed, reviewing sensor data aboard the science vessel Discovery, presented his findings to the Cooperative Defense Council. This wasn't a primary void entity, it was equivalent to a reconnaissance drone. Its purpose wasn't conquest, but information gathering. You mean it was studying our defenses? Admiral Winters concluded grimly. Precisely. And it transmitted data back to its point of origin before we destroyed it. Similar encounters followed throughout the galactic rim. Each void construct appeared more adapted to counter cooperative tactics than the last. A technological arms race ensued, with both sides evolving rapidly. In the shipyards orbiting New Terra, Chief Engineer Malik oversaw the construction of next-generation defensive vessels. We're incorporating technology from 23 different species, he explained to visiting officials. The void adapts to patterns it recognizes. Our advantage lies in unpredictability. The strategy proved effective in isolated engagements, but the cooperative's resources were being stretched thin. For every void construct destroyed, 2 more appeared elsewhere. 6 months into the conflict, long-range sensors detected a massive disturbance in intergalactic space, a void mothership, orders of magnitude larger than anything previously encountered. On Nexus, the cooperative leadership convened an emergency session. The holographic chamber displayed the approaching threat, a structure the size of a small moon, surrounded by thousands of smaller constructs. Our current defenses cannot repel something of this magnitude, admitted Commander Drake. Director Morrison of Adaptive Technologies stepped forward. There may be another option. The Architect's archives mentioned a protocol called Eternal Vigil, a last resort weapon they never deployed. Why not? Asked a Centauri representative. Morrison's expression was grave. Because its activation would destroy not only the target but also permanently alter spacetime throughout the deployment region. They feared the cure might be worse than the disease. The debate raged for hours. Could they risk deploying a weapon with such catastrophic side effects? Was there time to develop alternatives? In the end, necessity overrode caution. A joint task force was assembled to implement the Eternal Vigil protocol. The most advanced ships from every cooperative species converged at a staging area near the galactic rim, preparing for what many believed would be a one-way mission. Admiral Jackson addressed the assembled fleet commanders from the bridge of the Prometheus. "We stand at the precipice," she declared, her voice steady despite the gravity of the moment. "Behind us lie trillions of sentient beings across tens of thousands of worlds. Before us comes an enemy that has consumed entire galaxies. The architects failed to stop the void. The Council chose to hide from it. We choose to fight." As the Void mothership entered the outer sensor perimeter, the cooperative fleet moved to intercept. The largest coordinated military action in galactic history was underway, not for conquest or resources, but for survival itself. What followed would be recorded in the histories of every participating species as the Battle of the Rim, the day when the galaxy's future hung in the balance. The Battle of the Rim lasted 27 hours by standard galactic time. Its repercussions would echo for millennia. The deployment of the Eternal Vigil protocol created a cascading quantum reaction that tore the Void mothership apart at the subatomic level. As predicted, the weapon's effects extended far beyond its intended target, creating a permanent distortion in spacetime spanning several light years, a wound in reality itself. But the victory came at tremendous cost. 17 capital ships and over 100 smaller vessels were lost. Among the fallen was the Prometheus with Admiral Jackson and her crew, who had manually guided the Eternal Vigil device to its target when automated systems failed. In the aftermath, as rescue operations continued and damage assessments poured in, A message arrived from deep space monitoring stations. The remaining void constructs were retreating, abandoning their advanced positions throughout the galaxy. "They're withdrawing to regroup," cautioned Admiral Winters during the emergency council session. This was never going to be a single battle but a prolonged conflict. "We've won the first engagement, but the war continues." The cooperative faced a sobering reality. The Eternal Vigil Protocol had worked once, but the void would adapt. Future defense would require innovation rather than repetition. A century passed. The generation that had fought the Battle of the Rim gave way to their children and grandchildren. The cooperative evolved from a military alliance into an integrated civilization spanning the galaxy. Species that had once viewed each other with suspicion or contempt now shared technologies, cultures, and even homeworlds. Humanity, once exiled as dangerously unpredictable, became recognized as the catalyst that had transformed galactic society. Their adaptability and questioning nature, traits the Council had feared, proved essential in confronting an enemy that exploited stagnation. On the 100th anniversary of the Battle of the Rim, a massive memorial station was dedicated at the site of the engagement. Representatives from over 500 species gathered to honor those who had fallen and to celebrate a century of unprecedented cooperation. Admiral Elena Winters IV, great-granddaughter of the woman who had led humanity during exile, addressed the assembly. "A century ago, our ancestors faced extinction and chose defiance instead. They transformed exile into opportunity, fear into courage, division into unity. Today, we continue their legacy." Behind her, a massive view screen showed the quantum barrier that now protected the galaxy. A network of phase-shifting generators extending throughout the galactic rim, constantly monitored and upgraded as new technologies emerged. Beyond this barrier, void activity continued. Periodically, advanced constructs tested the defenses, probing for weaknesses. Each attempt was repelled, each attack studied to predict future strategies. In the cooperative archives on Nexus, historian Terran updated the records of humanity's journey. Exiled by the Council in an attempt to remove a perceived threat, humanity instead became the cornerstone of galactic survival. Their unique combination of adaptability, curiosity, and determination, qualities once deemed disruptive, catalyzed the greatest transformation in recorded history. In the centuries that followed, as the cooperative expanded its influence and defensive capabilities, humanity continued to evolve. Some embraced integration with other species, forming hybrid communities and cultures. Others pushed the boundaries of exploration, establishing colonies in neighboring galaxies, untouched by the void. The ancient council chamber on Centauri Prime, once the seat of stagnant authority, was preserved as a historical site, a reminder of how rigid adherence to tradition had nearly doomed all sentient life. In its place stood the cooperative nexus, where representatives from thousands of worlds gathered to address collective challenges. No species dominated, all contributed according to their unique strengths and perspectives. The governance model that had emerged from humanity's exile experience, adaptive, collaborative, focused on innovation rather than tradition, became the foundation for a thriving intergalactic society. Far beyond the galactic rim, in the void between galaxies, massive sensor arrays monitored the movements of the enemy. Strategic planners no longer spoke of final victory. The void, by its nature, could never be completely eradicated. Instead, they developed sustainable defense strategies designed to last millennia. Aboard the exploration vessel New Horizon, bound for a neighboring galaxy, Captain Marcus Reynolds contemplated the vast expanse visible through the observatory dome. His ship carried representatives from 32 species, united in the quest to extend the cooperative's protective influence. "We were exiled to die," he mused to his first officer, remembering the ancient history taught to every child. "Instead, we found our true purpose." As the New Horizon prepared to make the intergalactic jump, Reynolds received a final transmission from Cooperative Command. "Proceed with exploration. Extend the barrier. Continue the legacy." Humanity had been cast out, expected to perish in darkness. Instead, they had become the light by which an entire galaxy navigated toward its future. Proof that sometimes exile isn't an end, but the beginning of a greater journey.